My name is Fay Stevenson Smith. I live in Connecticut. I'm a retired obstetrician and practiced in the area for a number of years and the careers that preceded my being an obstetrician. I'm really here to share with you how I came to be an artist, a sculptor in particular. I grew up in the segregated South in Mississippi and Kentucky in the 40s and 50s and beyond. I was in a family that was basically uneducated. My family was sharecroppers, former slaves in my ancestry. And I didn't have any idea what art was. There was nothing in my home that reflected it. There were no pictures on the walls. There were no ways of appreciating art. And so as a child, growing up in Kentucky, I would draw pictures and admire them, but didn't get much feedback from my mother or other people in the community. Not that I was trying to share the community, it wasn't that good. But I also like to write poetry, and I like to make little sculpture figures out of the mud that was at the side of my house because there was no grass on the lawn in Madisonville. When I moved to Indianapolis, I did there was no art, there was some art in the middle school, but there was art in the high school. I took an art class with Mrs. Robinson, but I don't remember being encouraged or having any particular talent. I was interested, but I didn't see any avenue for me to explore that. And also having been poor, I was really very focused and high achiever when it came to getting a good education, because I knew I needed to do something that was going to allow me to escape the poverty that I'd grown up in. Wasn't sure what that would be, but it eventually turned into science, because that was during the time when Sputnik and the Russians were competing with the United States for space exploration and this kind of thing. As a result, I ended up going to college in Illinois, where I majored in chemistry. And again, with no particular interest in trying to pursue a career in art, I didn't. I did model for the life drawing class that was taught off campus. I also, in my last semester, took a painting class on Dr. Gowdy. And I tried painting, but I found that I really wasn't good at it. I didn't have a sense of how to shade or tone or do anything, so I didn't really pursue that. I tried doing a couple of paintings afterwards, but they weren't good. Then I took a turn, and I took a different direction. I taught in Africa for a while, came back, got a master's in psychology, got into television for a year or two, and then was still struggling to figure out what I wanted to do. As a result, I ended up deciding to go to medical school. And when I was in medical school, I ran into a man I'd met a number of years before, who was a sculptor, and he had been commissioned to do a sculpture for the bicentennial in Philadelphia, which is standing at this time on 5th and Market in Philadelphia in Independence Mall. And he took me by a studio, and I asked him, well, how did you do that? He said, it's easy, just get some plastoline. And I went and bought some plastoline. I was in my senior year in medical school, and of course, my focus was again trying to get deeper into that career to be successful in it. So I ended up going to do my residency in Philadelphia. Didn't do any sculpture besides what I did that senior year. I tried making a couple of small heads. When I left Philadelphia to start a practice in Connecticut, I had, by this time, had an appreciation for some of the classical artists, which I had to study as part of my coursework at Knox, at the college. And somewhere along the way, as I was practicing obstetrics and gynecology, a couple of patients in my office mentioned that I must have mentioned something about being interested in art, so I talked with them about it, and they told me about this woman in Westport who had a studio. So I went to her studio, And I walked in, I saw these people doing some really amazing things on their sculpture stands. And I chose a sitting figure. I'd never done a head, a hand or a foot or a body, and yet it seemed to come out in my fingers. It was like a natural thing that just came out of whatever I'd learned about anatomy in medical school, but in addition to that, just having a feel for how that got transformed into a three-dimensional figure, which I was very excited about. As a result, I continued to practice and went to her class on Monday nights for a number of years. And then once I retired, I had more time to spend sculpting. The end result is that I do figurative sculpture. I work in clay. I've done a few pieces in wax, but primarily clay. And when it was affordable, some of those pieces were cast in bronze when I had the money. I have had commissions to do a number of pieces that I'm very proud of. I have also done sculptures for the college that I attended because they recognize, I'm on the board of trustees at the college, and they recognized my interest, or one particular person did, and after that I became more involved with doing commissioned work. I find it very enjoyable. It's because that was never my intention. The reason for doing it in the first place, the same as practicing medicine, wasn't about making money. I've always been striving to find something that really spoke and expressed my creative thoughts or feelings about life and the world. And if when people come and see my art, they notice that most of it is about the African diaspora. All of my family's black. My father's Irish, but I grew up in a black community, so my subjects and my people that I choose to do sculptures of are also Afrocentric for the most part. I've done some portrait busts of people who are really in existence, and so those have been some of the commissions. But the end result is that I intend to make use of the rest of my life, creating some sculptures that satisfy me. And in the process, if they sell, or if somebody wants to sell them after I'm no longer here, that would be fine too. But if I sold them now, my house would be empty because my house is primarily my gallery, and I enjoy being in it. I have a hard time parting with pieces sometimes, but it is the completion of a story that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.